Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome back to Sentinel Reviews. Today we are looking at Planet Doom, the third series in the Big Finish spin-off Master, released in February 2024, directed by Barnaby Kay and Jason Haig-Ellery. Master Series 3 Planet Doom stars Eric Roberts as the Master and Chase Masterson as Vienna Salvatori. As always, because I'm doing these unscripted, there is a blanket spoiler warning in place in the event that I decide to talk about spoilers. So if you do not wish to be spoiled, in the description box below is the link to Big Finish's website where you can purchase Master Series 3 Planet Doom. This set consists of 3 stories: Basilisk by Robert Whitelock, Axis Rising by Barnaby Kay, and Hellbound by Rob Valentine. Overall, Planet Doom is a massive improvement over Series 2, Nemesis Express. Not that Nemesis Express was bad, it was just very meh. Planet Doom is spectacular. It is not as good as Series 1, just titled Master, but it is still superb. Eric Roberts is once again phenomenal as this incarnation of the Master. Even more so because, once again, they're dialing back the camp. The Eric Roberts Master, because of the TV movie, is generally known for being much campier, much sort of goofier. And then John Sim happened. But I think in Eric Roberts' early appearances, like The Diary of River Song and Ravenous and Master Series 1, toning him down and dialing back the camp really improved this Master, at least in my eyes. I don't know about your eyes as viewers. But what are your thoughts on that? And then, in Series 2, Nemesis Express, they sort of started injecting camp. I won't say dialed it up, but they really started injecting camp back into his character, which I think led to some very weak moments in Roberts' performance in that release, in Nemesis Express. Because, those moments, they felt so strained. I don't really know how to put it into words. I feel like in a performance, something can come off as feeling very natural, very sort of real. But those moments where Roberts had to be more campy, they felt very acted, very forced. Once again, Planet Doom kind of seems to have realized that and started dialing back on the camp. Also interesting to note, here, let me kind of talk about this again, because it's something I talk about every time the Eric Roberts Master comes up. I liken this incarnation of the Master to an animal almost. He's motivated by a very strong survival instinct. The Jeffrey Beavers, Peter Pratt, Anthony Ainley, and Eric Roberts incarnation of the Master are all the same incarnation of the Master. There are some schools of thought that say they're all Roger Delgado. I'm not getting into that short version. I don't believe so. I believe Roger Delgado regenerated into Jeffrey Beavers, and then it was that Jeffrey Beavers incarnation that was disfigured, and the rest of the story from there. But one of the major objectives of that Master, because he has no regenerations left, I am really phlegmy, excuse me, has been to find a way to expand his life, to expand his life and prolong living. But whereas Jeffrey Beavers and Anthony Ainley found very stable ways to do it, it wasn't perfect, but at least they were stabilized, the Eric Roberts Master doesn't have that benefit. Essentially, as soon as he became Eric Roberts, his body started deteriorating. So he's needed a way to expand his life. He does not have, the assurance that Jeffrey Beavers and Anthony Ainley have of a prolonged lifespan. So this Master has been much more animalistic because he has a much stronger survival instinct, because he's essentially perpetually at the end of his life. Here, the plot set of Planet Doom just kind of generally ignores that and really allows this version of the Master to play up some of the Master's traits. in particular, his scheming, his machinations, and his sadism. Like, there are so many moments throughout these three stories where Roberts just gets to be really sadistic, cheering when characters die, reveling in betraying people, things like that other masters always do. It's really enjoyable to see Eric Roberts getting a chance to do that. Story ranking. Like I said, we have three stories: Basilisk, Axis Rising, and Hellbound. It's tough because they are all pretty consistent, but I think my ranking would be reverse story order. Hellbound is the weakest. It's a good finale, just kind of underwhelming compared to everything that came before it. And then Axis Rising, and then Basilisk. So Basilisk opens this set. A group of mercenaries have kidnapped Vienna Salvatori because she holds the key to retrieving the master from the vortex. And once he is retrieved, they are handcuffed together, essentially, sci-fi technobabble mumbo jumbo that allows them to still operate independently even though they are handcuffed together. And they are basically forced to cooperate in this job these mercenaries need to do. And it goes on from there. Basically, they are infiltrating a temple that is housing Axis. Axos, the mercenaries, are trying to retrieve Axos, which in turn allows the master to come up with his own plans, and Vienna trying to find a way to stop him. So as I've been kind of talking about, this story is overall a Claws of Axos sequel. Claws of Axos is a third Doctor story from Season 8, John Pertwee's second season. One of my favorite Pertwee seasons, and the Claws of Axos is either, for me, the weakest story or the second weakest story of that season. I kind of flip-flop between that and Colony in Space. It's also just, for me, not very memorable. Like, I barely remember the Axons. Like, they're kind of energy vampires, so to speak. I'm getting way off track here, but I like what this set does. Like, this set does a couple of interesting things. I totally went blank on that. Like, it kind of builds Axos to be this Lovecraftian monstrosity. Like, Axos is essentially a parasite. Like I said, energy vampire, and that's true. Like, there is this emphasis that energy-based weapons don't work on Axos because Axos just feeds off them growing stronger. And it can split itself apart, forming new axons. It's kind of weird because I think in the Claws of Axos they were just called axons, but they're also part of a single hive called Axos, and trying to differentiate between those two is going to be really weird to talk about. But and then the axons in the Claws of Axos were a separate appendage, or scion as this story calls them, of the larger Axos entity, which has been imprisoned by the Time Lords, which is why these mercenaries need the Master. If I remember, I'll talk a little bit more about the Axos plotline in particular, because I do want to talk about the stories a little bit more, in particular Basilisk. What I like about Basilisk, really, is that it kind of evokes James Cameron's Aliens. I feel like Doctor Who talks about this a lot, or at least from what I've seen in the fandom and behind the scenes stuff. Doctor Who loves to evoke Ridley Scott's science fiction horror movie, Alien. And we see that all the time. Like the Tom Baker story, The Ark in Space, often gets compared to Alien a lot. And I've seen it several other times, like the Paul McGann audio sort of Orion gets compared to Alien. I myself similarly have compared the Jodie Whittaker story, the Tsuranga conundrum, to Alien. We see a lot of these evocations of Alien a lot throughout Doctor Who, but never so much its sequel, Aliens, the only good Alien sequel. And I really like it. Basilisk plays out like that scene in Aliens where we're introduced to the Colonial Marines. Hudson, Vasquez, all of them. I don't remember all their names. My dad does. He's seen Aliens so many times. I really like Aliens. I just haven't seen it enough to remember everyone. But, and it gives us time to get to know these characters, before the inevitable starts happening. So it really allows us to bond with these, well, not necessarily bond, but to get to know these characters and feel something for them, before the inevitable when they start getting picked off. Surprisingly, not by the master, but he does revel in it a lot. And then starting in the second story, Axis Rising, we are reintroduced to Passion, the secondary protagonist of Nemesis Express. And Terry Ann Bob Baxter gives a much better performance in this story. Passion is a triangulum, that is the name of her species, and it was kind of built up in Nemesis Express. The triangulums were built up as sort of this empathetic, is that the right word? Probably. Yeah, this sort of empathetic, emotionally driven race. Those kind of, we have powers linked to our emotions. And the way it plays out into that story, it feels like Passion had to keep her emotions in check. And oftentimes I felt like this was a weakness of Terry Ann Bob Baxter's performance, because oftentimes trying to play, restrained emotions just came off as being kind of flat and dull. Here, Terry Ann Bob Baxter's performance is much improved. Like, she is still playing it like that, emotions are kind of very dangerous to a triangulum, but it feels like she is playing it, keeping them in check rather than coming off as just flat. There is also an interesting time skip that happens in Axis Rising that creates some good emotional drama, but ultimately isn't played out enough, I feel. Basically Axis, like the final barrier before the Master can get to Axis is a time barrier where, everything in it moves inside much more slowly than the rest of reality. So while the Master and Vienna are behind it, with Axis, when they get out, for a couple minutes, when they get out, 3 years have passed. And I'm going to pause right there to talk about Vienna for a bit, because Chase Masterson is the standout of this set. She gives such a stellar, phenomenal performance. Throughout these sets, one thing I've kind of gotten about Vienna is she's very witty, or she thinks she's witty. She's very snarky. Snarky is probably a better word than witty. Always delivering these quips and barbs and jokes. Even in much more dangerous situations, and presumably it's an emotional defense. It kind of always makes her feel like it's in control. So, one thing you as a writer can do with a character like this to sell the severity of a situation is have a character who talks and acts like that stop talking and acting like that, because, once their defenses drop, it kind of lets the audience know, oh, wait, this is actually really bad. And that's what happens with Masterson here. Vienna's, persona, her snarky, sarcastic persona drops as soon as people start dying. And again, it clues you in on just how serious this situation is. And, quite honestly, Vienna in this set goes through hell. Early on in the second story, Axis Rising, there is in the temple, in sort of a subterranean tunnel of the temple, there is this watery chasm that they have to swim under and come out on the other side. And it's very obviously a close call. One of the side characters nearly drowns trying to get through there. And as soon as Vienna comes out, she just snaps and loses it at the Master. You almost killed both of us. Again, because of the conditions of them being handcuffed together. And similarly, in the final story, Hellbound, when she realizes she's behind that on the other side of Axis's time barrier, she's been separated from Passion for 3 years, and realizing Passion spent all this time looking for her and came to rescue her, it's a very sobering moment for Vienna. And, just Chase Masterson Eric Roberts and Chase Masterson are both spectacular in this set, but by and far, Chase Masterson is the standout here. There is one more thing I want to say about Axis Rising. It's kind of hinted at if you look at the cover, because there is an Axon. Also, Chase Masterson has to play an Axon duplicate of Vienna, and she's also really good at that with some really good sound editing. I just wanted to end there, but like as you can kind of see from the cover here, the Doctor is in this story. And I really, really want to praise that, because I feel like with the Big Finish spin-offs, once the Doctor shows up, even if it's just in one story, in one series, or what have you, they become a major plot element of the story. Like they're a major catalyst, or they are a vital part of the conflict resolution. Just something like that. I really want to praise this story in that regard, because Paul McGann's appearance here really is just a cameo. Like, he does not show up until the end of the story, and all Vienna and Passion have already put in the steps to stop Axis and potentially the Master, hopefully. Like, all the Doctor really does is give them a getaway to get away from what's happening. And like I said, some people probably wanted more. Like, they probably wanted another, because Ravenous 4, big Eric Roberts, Paul McGann scene together. And there's a little bit of that. But again, rather than being a major key player, Paul McGann is just a cameo. And I really want to applaud Big Finish for that, for doing something so different with the Doctor in a Doctor Who spinoff, rather than having the Doctor end up being a major character. I just wanted to praise that, and I also want to praise the ending. So I'm going to reiterate a point I've said several times, talking about the Eric Roberts Big Finish audios. Because the expanded universe pays much more attention to continuity in the show, I'll try to ghost over this really fast, because I do always talk about it. There is a story that said the Eric Roberts body was destroyed in the vortex, reverting the Master back to Jeffrey Beavers. So every story with the Eric Roberts Master has either had to take place in the vortex or end with him being sent back into the vortex. This story doesn't do that. Planet Doom does not do that. And I really like it. The Master acquires a ship and he sets off to terrorize the galaxy. And I really like it. It keeps the storyline for the Eric Roberts Master open, whereas every other time Eric Roberts has been in something, it's felt like a potential ending. Again, probably because Eric Roberts is busy and Big Finish doesn't know when they're going to get the chance to work with him again. But I like that rather than just sort of ending it, question mark, they keep it open for potentially more stories. Overall, Planet Doom is fantastic. Like, it's better than Nemesis Express, not as good as Series 1, but I think just talking about it right now, I ended up liking it more than I did just listening to it. Eric Roberts and Chase Masterson are phenomenal in this story, especially Chase Masterson, as I mentioned. It's got strong supporting characters. I really like the improvements and the additions to the lore of Axos, and it's just got some really stellar stories. But those are just my thoughts. Have you heard Planet Doom yet? What are yours? Please start a conversation in the comments below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload, and in the description box below, you'll find the link to my social medias, where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next time.